always frozen before I go live, but we are live. Happy Tuesday, best season bosses. How are you doing? How was your weekend? Doing so well. The start of my week was so lovely. I went away this weekend to go see my sister cousin, is who I call her. I think I told you all that last week. She's actually my cousin, but we lived together for a little moment when we were growing up, and she feels like a sister. She's a little bit older than me, so I went to go see her, and we had our own self-created retreat. She's also a business owner. She's very successful. We had lots of good business talk, lots of good life talk, lots of good food, feeling very refreshed. Though I did have kind of coming home, I had one of those trips where everything got delayed and delayed, and then I landed in New York City, which is where I live, and it was like super organized, but it was raining and cars were taking forever. So it took me some like crazy amount of time to get home. It was kind of a funny comedy of eras, but lovely trip. And also just frame that because I think it's just so helpful to remember. You can have the most amazing time, wonderful time, enjoy all the first class lovely things, and then it can rain and you can have to wait a while for a car, and that's just like the bothness of life, and that's okay. Anyway, feeling very full and just buoyant today after that. And looking forward to our conversation. I think this is a good convo for us to be having. This is a conversation I have with clients so often. I feel like this is one of those conversations that a bunch of my clients are going to think I'm singling them out. And I will just tell you, if you're one of my clients watching now or on the replay, this is a conversation that comes up for everyone. So this is not singling anyone out, but it is so prevalent. It is something I'm talking about so much behind the scenes. I thought it would be good to bring here and open up and just dig into. And so we're going to dive into getting shit done. That's what GSD stands for. I'm sure it could stand for something else as well, but that's what I mean by it. Without burning out or wanting to burn your business down, because I think that is the place we want to be in business. And I think what can happen, Tilly says, I've literally been thinking about these topics too, so I'm lurking around here. I love you. I hope this will give you some insights, and you'll have to let me know what you think about this as well as we're chatting through. And same for anyone, if you're live or on the replay. Oh, I always forget to do this. We have a giveaway most weeks. If you comment live, we are giving away a copy to my self-study course, Get Unstuck, Unlock Your Success. This is an oldie but a goodie. I think I created this at the very start of my business. It's an all audio-based course. It goes through 5 of the most common mindset blocks I see entrepreneurs, creatives, and coaches go through, and it gives you some tools to shift and get out of your own way. I still offer it because it's still relevant, and like things really don't change in that way. So it's a good one, and I've had people have really great ahas and shifts from it alone. So come and say hi. You'll be entered. We'll give away 1 copy to that, and that'll be super fun to give away. We've got some new giveaways coming up over the next couple of weeks as well. But getting shit done, and how to get shit done as a CEO, very specifically as a CEO, without burning out or wanting to burn your business down. Because I think a couple of things come up for me here around this topic before we dig into the specifics and what I really want to dive into. I think this is sort of a twofold thing. I think, yes, you can just hustle, and get things done. That will absolutely get shit done in your business. And there honestly probably is a phase in business where you might need to lean into that a little bit more. I talk about this in so many different ways, but I really do think there is a different for you when you're building, growing, and scaling your business. And I think your business asks different things of you. I don't think you ever need to burn out, but I do think there are seasons where we have to lean into a little healthy hustle, and that is required. And as you have more and more success, I think what we sometimes don't always talk about is with more success, there tends to come more of everything along with that, right? You get more success, that tends to be that there are more to-dos on your list. There are more people who want your attention. There are more people who have comments for you and questions for you. There are more invitations to do a collaboration. There are more pitches. There are more leads. There are more DMs. There's more money to navigate. There's more team to navigate, right? There's just everything you're navigating is amplified. And I have a podcast coming up around this. I think that can also be the very reason sometimes people resist more success, because that can feel very overwhelming. And it also doesn't have to be, but this is why this is a conversation I have so much with clients. Yes, when they're building their business, how do you get more shit done without burning out? But also, as I would say, my clients are making 250, 500, over 500K a year. So many of our conversations are around this, because suddenly it's like the blessing, the shadow side blessing of being more successful is there's just more of everything to navigate. And yes, look, I am here for let's delegate more. I am here for let's expand your team. I am here for let's get a great calendar system. I am here for systems and processes. I am here for increase your prices. Like all of that I'm here for time tracking. I time track every quarter religiously. In my business, I delegate to my team, right? These are things I'm always revisiting. I time block. I do all of these things personally, and I definitely coach clients through that. And all of that is super valuable. And I think the practical tools are super necessary for you as a CEO to get more shit done. And what I find for most people when you're starting to hit a wall of, look, I've been calendaring and delegating, and I have been time blocking and doing all those things, and it still feels like I can't get everything done that I need to, and I don't know how to do this, and I'm just starting to feel burnt out. I'm starting to sit down to do work, and my brain is spacing. I can't keep up with everything, no matter how many new, I don't know, spreadsheets I make and calendar tracking systems I get. I'm just not getting everything done. I think we have to start to look at what else needs to give here, because you can't keep trying to solve a problem that isn't a calendar problem with buying another calendar, right? We can't keep trying to solve a productivity problem that we're claiming is from not delegating enough, or because your prices aren't high enough, or because you haven't time tracked well enough, or because you haven't time blocked well enough, when that's not actually the issue at hand, right? You can only time block 24 hours in a day. I don't care how unicorn you are. It doesn't matter how good and efficient I am and how productive I am, I still have the same 24 hours everyone else does. And yes, sometimes we say that to say, you have the same 24 hours as Oprah, except for you don't have the same 24 hours as Oprah. Oprah has many more than 24 hours because of her resources and how much of a team she has, and that's a whole team conversation. And within that, what Oprah specifically, what she can do, we'll just use her as the example, right? She still only has those 24 hours. She still can't do more than those 24 hours will allot, even if she wasn't sleeping or anything like that. And what we're talking about is how to get more done without burning your business down and without burning out. So that's the conversation we're going to dig into today, because your time is your most valuable non-renewable asset as a CEO. I know all of us want to make more money, and look, I love me some money. I love money, absolutely. And money is renewable. I know sometimes in business it feels like you can't make more money. You can always make more money. What you can't make more of is time. And as a CEO, I think starting to really look at your time as your most valuable asset, and as a human, right? Starting to look at your time as your most valuable asset that is non-renewable is so important. And also starting to look at your productivity really does matter as a CEO, right? There are, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this in a way that makes sense, but this isn't about you have to do everything and do all the things and hustle and grind it out, but if you're wanting a certain level of success in business, your business does have to have a certain level of productivity, whether it's by you or someone else. That is what is going to generate results. That's just the way kind of business goes. So yes, again, I'm so here for the time tracking. I'm so here for the time blocking. I'm so here for the calendaring. And again, I do all of those things. Today, we're going to talk about if you've tried all of that and you're still feeling like, why can I not get everything done? Why do I feel like I'm frustrated? Why do I feel like I never have enough brain space, or I'm starting to resent my business or wanting to burn it down, or there's never enough time in the day? That's what we're going to dig into more today. Let me just check no comments, but if you have comments, throw them at me. Let me just give you the bullets for what I definitely want to dive into, just so you know what we're digging into. And then I hope this will be a very helpful and simple conversation, because my conversation for you today is, it's one of the simplest, not always the easiest, but one of the simplest ways to get more stuff done. So we're going to talk about how to know when you have a calendar, time tracking, time management issue, or when it's something else to address, really how to be able to know that so that you can close the right gap in overwhelm and be more productive in your business. We're going to talk about the simple but not always easy hack that has to nothing to do with time tracking, nothing to do with bringing on more team members, though I'm here for that too. But I think sometimes we unintentionally close the wrong gap in our business, and we're going to talk about that a little bit so that you can get your time back and have more of that quality CEO level time. We're going to talk a little bit about the number one tool almost every business owner will benefit from, that gives you back practical time, energetic bandwidth, and brain space. And I'm reading these. And so why many entrepreneurs struggle to implement this. So that should be fun. And then I'm going to talk about the fear I see come up for pretty much every client of mine making $500,000 or more. I think this comes up for clients at earlier stages in business too, but I really see this come up around that level. And just as you have more success, more visibility, more on your plate, and just how you can play with that mindset gremlin so you can stay your own way and scale without burning out, or sustain without burning out. All right. So any thoughts Tinley, I think you're here, and anyone else is live here. Any guesses on? I'm going to share how to tell the difference between if it's something going on that's practical or something else. But any thoughts on what that hack is? I'd be curious to hear if anyone has a guess on what the hack is. The clue I'll give before I dive into that is it's super simple. It's one of those things that is very obvious, and it is something that I think every business owner to some degree knows and does well and can do. And I think that most people have some degree of challenge with, which is why we look to basically everything else. Like how can I just delegate more or time track more? So would love to see if there are any guesses. And before I give you the answer here, let's talk about how we know if it's a practical thing or if it's something else going on. So I think one of the easiest ways to look at this is if you are feeling overwhelmed and you have felt like your time is super crunchy and you've never done anything like time tracking. And by time tracking, if no one, I feel like this is a term maybe we all know, but this is something I do every quarter for a week. I basically have a spreadsheet in half an hour increments. I just literally track where all of my time is going, so I can be really honest with myself, because we like to lie and say, I've been working on my content for 17 hours, and then we look at our time tracking sheet and it's like, oh, actually it was 30 minutes that you were working on your content, but you were thinking about it for 17 hours. Or you're stressing about it, or whatever that is. And I'm being very silly and giving an example of how dramatic our brain can be. But I will do this often for a week. It is not my most favorite fun thing to do. It can be a little tedious. I don't love tracking every half an hour increment, but it is so valuable. It's such valuable data for you to see where your time is going. And the way I like to time track and coach my clients to time track is both to track your time, but also I leave a note section. So I like to make notes around what was my mindset? How was I feeling? Did I sleep well the night before? This is something I don't need to do, that I could delegate. So I just like to make little notes for myself, and I like to do it over the course of a week. You don't have to, you could do 1 to 3 days, but I like to do it in a pretty relatively normal week in my business so that I can see what's happening over the course of the week, not on one day, because that doesn't always necessarily give me the best data insight. And it's really helpful just to get a landscape on where's my time going, how productive am I actually being, how much am I doing that really doesn't need to be done by me that I can't delegate out, where am I feeling resistance, where am I feeling overwhelmed, how much of this is mindset, how much of this is practical. So if you've never done that before, I would say start there, because it can be really tough to discern otherwise what you're feeling, because oftentimes overwhelm can be a mindset construct and have a lot more to do with the way we're thinking and obsessing and worrying, or the thoughts we're placing on top of an action and productivity, and not necessarily what's literally on our plate. Sometimes it can be an alignment thing. So this can be a very helpful way to get that landscape. So if you've never done that before, I highly recommend that. So if you've never done that before, if you've never time blocked before and scheduled yourself, if you're starting to grow your business and you've never looked at how do I literally time calendar block myself and see, would I just be more productive if I had a schedule as opposed to just flying by the seat of my pants every day? If you've never set out a plan for your, scheduled yourself before, if you've never brought on a team member before and you're seeing that's an opportunity, those are all places I would start, because yes, sometimes overwhelm, sometimes not getting shit done in business, sometimes feeling like you can't get anything done and it feels like everything is taking forever is a very practical solve. And these would be some of the obvious practical solves to start for. When you look at your time tracking sheet, that's going to be really helpful to help you see, oh, here's how you could time track. Here's where maybe there's a mindset work opportunity and you're getting overwhelmed. Here are the 10 things you don't need to do that you could delegate out to get back 10 hours a week, whatever that might be. And I want to be mindful, because of what we're talking about today is going to be a little bit more on the mindset side of things, but practical is absolutely a solution. So if you've never leaned into that, I would check there so you can get some discernment around things. Tilly says, cut out the crap. Wait, what's cut out the crap to? What did I say? Did I say cut out the crap? It's funny. I'm on a riff, and cut out the crap. That's your answer. That's your guess to what my you're close. That's your guess to my my question on what the hack is. You're not so far off. You know me very. Know me well. It's not exactly that, but it is. You're close. You're very, very lukewarm hot. Ha ha ha. I was kidding for what the hack was. Yeah, I'm on the slow boat today. Clearly, I'm still on vacation brain. No, I got you on that. So I think I just want to give those practical things there, because I do think sometimes we can talk more about mindset hacks and more about other types of hacks, so to say, in air quotes, that we we will rule out the practicals. And the first step that I think can be really useful in the surface level solutions, and like practical serves a purpose, right? When I'm looking at money, no matter how much money mindset I do, I still practically want to know how to budget, how to invest, how it makes sense to leverage my money, right? Like the practical tools are still going to support the mindset and energy side of things. Like we really need both. So I would say start there. And what I find happens is if you have those practicals in place, and let's say you're coming to a call with me and you're telling me you don't have time to get X, Y, and Z done, and you're feeling really overwhelmed, and we've solved for the practical, and it's now the third week and now the fourth week, and the practical solution isn't making a shift, and you're showing up for that practical solution, I would say that's a really good insight or guess there that we now need to go a level deeper, and this is no longer about calendaring, right? Like this is when we like just you can't out calendar, you can't out process something that is more of a mindset shift. And so I think that can just be a really helpful way to see. And a lot of the times for clients when it's a more practical solution like calendaring or organizing, time blocking, usually what I find is you're feeling a lot more neutral, right? You might be a little overwhelmed, but it feels very easy to look at your calendar and kind of move blocks around and make that plan, which also tells us you probably have enough time in your calendar and you're not overbooked. When that feels really charged and heavy, when it feels really stressful, when it feels like I don't know how I'm going to get this done, when every time you go down to execute that plan, you're either feeling overwhelmed, it feels like you're crunchy, it feels like your brain spaces out, it feels like you're avoiding something, it feels like you just can't keep up and you're always chasing. Right? This is whenever there's a charge to the practical solution, whether that's thinking about it or implementing it, that's a really good indication for us that this is no longer about simply having a better time tracking system or a better calendaring system or a better like scheduling plan, right? Like that's usually how we have a good indication there. Now, I'm giving general thoughts here. Obviously, this will be different for every business owner. If I was coaching one-on-one, I would know you better, know what's going on. But I think that can just be an overall way to kind of gauge with yourself, because I think it's sneaky, right? And I think burnout in particular can be a sneaky thing, because a lot of burnout really is more of a you can hustle too much, right? You can hustle to the point of actual adrenal fatigue and burnout. Like that is a very real thing in our space. And burnout can also very much be more of a mental fatigue burnout that has to do with a lot of things that have nothing to do with how much you're practically showing up. And when you're in alignment, when we've got the mindset pieces in check and some of the hack I'm going to share today, I think what you'll find is you can spend the same amount of time working and not feel like you're burning out and not feel like you want to burn your business to the ground. And I think that can just be a really helpful way for you to discern as well what's going on. I'm not sure if that makes sense, and I can re-explain that if that doesn't fully make sense. Or maybe this is a good way to describe that, and then I swear I'm gonna give the hack here. It's just so simple. I've got to tease it out and share the other things first, because you're gonna be like, really, Kim, that's the hack. But it's a really, really important one. Just because it's simple does not mean it's easy, and it's like I want to have a conversation because I think it's one of the most challenging things for people. But in terms of the burnout piece, maybe this is just helpful to hear. I think about this if I think about my acting days, I could show up to set and have a day where we went overtime and we were working 18 hours or something like that, right? And technically that's a long ass day. I wouldn't necessarily want to do that all the time, but I wouldn't feel burnt out afterwards, and I wouldn't want to burn down my career. If anything, I would feel really lit up and fueled because I was in alignment, because I was focused, because I was doing the work that feels really good to me, right? And yet if I spent, I don't know, I actually kind of loved waiting tables. I was talking about this with my cousin this weekend. I don't necessarily need to go back to my waiting tables days, but I did it for 10 years. I found a lot of enjoyment in working in the bar, and I don't know, it's the service industry, all the things there. But if I spent 18 hours waiting tables, I guarantee you, same amount of time. Well, let's just make it, because that's just an absurd amount of time. But if I spent 10 hours, right, working in the bar, because sometimes we'd have a double shift, I would feel burnt out. I would feel fried down. I would probably say I want to burn down this career. And so I think sometimes when we hear productivity and sometimes when we hear getting shit done, I think our brains just hear time and how much like literal like grind it out we can do. And it's so much more about what you're doing with that time, specifically how in alignment you are, how much it fuels you versus drains you, how much it feeds you, how much you want to do that work versus kind of loathe it and don't want to do, and then all of the other resistance fear stories that can come up, right? If I was super anxious about performing when I went to set, and if I felt really insecure, gratefully that was my happy place and I didn't feel that way, but let's just imagine I was like super in my head, I could have filmed for 2 hours and I probably would have been drained and burned out because I would have just been all jacked up in my head, and it would have felt like I'd been working all day long. So I want to express that because I think, yes, we all have the same amount of hours, and yes, you can expand your hours by delegating, but also the quality of each hour and what you're doing with it and how you're thinking about how you're leveraging it makes a really big difference to the not only the quality of CEO level work you're able to get done, but also to the way you're going to feel and whether it feels like you're burning out or whether it feels like you're going to burn something down. And so if you are a busy mom starting a business and let's say you have 3 hours a day to commit to your business, you have 15 hours a week, right? What you do with those 3 hours, not just practically what you do in terms of tasks and money generating activities, but how aligned those are and how you feel doing those and your mindset around it, right? That's going to make a really big difference to how much shit you get done in those 3 hours, how productive you actually are, and whether or not you feel burnt out afterwards or before. Does that track and make sense? Because I think that's not the hack I wanted to give, but I think that's one of the things we forget to think about. And I think so often in business, we don't do this on purpose, but especially if you're high achieving, we can just get into like, what's all the shit that needs to get done versus how can I really think about the quality of how that hour is and really showing up for my work in a way where it's allowing me to feel filled up versus drained, and really checking in with even what those activities are. And I'm going to explain this hack a little bit later, but just really starting to minimize the amount that drain you. Okay, let's go into the hack time of things though, because otherwise I'm going to chat for like 3 hours just about the energetics of your time. So when you feel like you are getting drained, you can't get stuff done, and we have discerned it's not just hey, you've never made a schedule before, and hey, this is the first time being a CEO and not being an employee, and you have to learn how to time block your own time and hold yourself accountable, right? If that's something new to you, lean into the practical. If that's not new to you, and we'll use some of my clients who are making, multiple six figures, and when they're coming to me and they're like, they know how to execute and they're just feeling drained. What I find is oftentimes what's going on is there's a bandwidth issue happening, and that's really why they're not getting stuff done. And when there's a bandwidth issue, what we often need to address is, again, not how do we time block your calendar better, but oftentimes, this is the hack, but I'm going to explain. I've got, what do I have? I have 3 main things here as a way to look at it, along with a mindset component. But like the broad overarching hack here, I would say, is looking at where do you have an opportunity to hold a boundary or to close an energy leak. And I know this is the most annoying thing because no one wants to hear boundaries and no one wants to hear close an energy leak, which closing an energy leak really is a boundary of sorts. But this is the hack among all hacks. If I'm using my set example, if I have an energy leak of, it doesn't even have to be related to my esteem and my work, but if I have an energy leak of I've just gotten into a fight with my best friend or in a traffic jam on the way to set and I am drained or pissed off or thinking about something else, right? It doesn't matter if I have 4 hours or 2 hours or 10 hours. If that's chewing my brain up, it's going to be so much harder for me to execute something of quality, right? I'm probably going to slow down production and need a million takes. If I think about my business, if I need to write some promo posts, but I'm all jacked up, I have an energy leak around something that's going on personally or something that's going on in my business, right? It doesn't matter if I have an hour on my calendar, it's going to feel very heavy and hard for me to sit down. Or if I have a story that I suck at writing promos or content, it's gonna be very hard for me to sit down and execute in that hour. It's not so much the time, it's the energy component. Similarly, if I have 2 hours available for, consults in a day, but I'm feeling energetically insecure, worried that the bottom's going to fall out of my business, or that I really need to hurry up and hustle and make more money. And I open up 4 hours on my calendar when I have two available because a bunch of people wanted to talk to me and I didn't hold a boundary around my time, right? That's not, and then I'm fried at the end of the day because I had a bunch of other things scheduled in that time. That's not actually a time blocking issue or a calendar issue. Yes, you didn't honor your calendar. That's a boundary issue, right? That's an energy leak and a boundary issue that is bleeding into the calendar. The reason you're not getting shit done, the reason then when after 4 hours of calls, when you had 2 hours, if what was scheduled next was to write that content we talked about, and you're like, I'm so fried and I can't write content, or I need to go do something else, it's very easy to make it, because I don't have enough time to write content, as the story, as the excuse, as the thing we think we need to solve for, when the real thing to solve for is, no, you actually have the time to write the content. You actually have the bandwidth to write the content. What's happening is you're not holding a boundary somewhere else. And so that is bleeding into the calendared time you made for your content. Is this tracking? Am I making, let me know if this is clicking for you. Tinley says, I've been feeling that pull to clean up my relationships and boundaries again, but also feel really sticky around it. So I know this is absolutely needs to happen. I'm going to talk about the stickiness, and I so appreciate you saying that, because I think that's just so the thing, Tinley, right? I think we can see, and I so appreciate you sharing that there's oftentimes, if we're not getting shit done, or we're not getting the results we want, or if we're feeling burnt out, or if we're feeling fried, or if we're feeling like we are getting things done, but it's a really heavy lift, or we're wanting to burn our business down, or we're just energetically feeling like there are those energy leaks that are bleeding elsewhere. Oftentimes it can be something with cleaning up relationships. It can be cleaning up the relationship with ourselves. I mean, it can be a relationship in so many different ways. But I think, I'd be so interested to hear, you don't have to share if you don't want to, Tinley, what feels sticky around cleaning those up. I think it's one of the things I know comes up for so many of my clients, and I was having a conversation around this with a client recently. We'll use this client as an example because I think it's very helpful. We have had multiple calls where, like, this has been the gap to close, so to say, and their time is getting leaked all over the place, and they really need that back to be able to grow their business. And it's not a calendar thing. It's not a scheduling thing. It's a scheduling thing, but it's a scheduling thing because really it's a boundary and an energy leak thing. But the reason that this isn't feeling so easy to solve for is boundaries can be and energy leaks to close, or getting rid of energy vampires can be a very challenging thing for most people, because underneath holding a boundary, like the reason most people don't hold boundaries or close an energy leak, which is a form of a boundary, or set a boundary, is because there's so much underneath there's a payoff, or there's a gain, maybe this is a better way to describe it, for not holding that boundary. So if you're someone, this client doesn't want people to be mad at them. This client, has some people pleasing tendencies. There's, I think, and I think this could be any of 10 clients. I don't think this is, giving any personal information away. I know for other clients, there's more of a scarcity fear that comes up. Fear-city is what I love to call it, but more that worry of, if I don't say yes to every opportunity, there will never be another opportunity. Or, it used to be really hard in my business to make money, and so now there's opportunities. I've got to, it's that whole saying, you've got to make hay while the sun shines. So I've got to try to grab onto everything, because otherwise I might not make some later. There might not be more later. So I think that can be another reason where it can be really challenging to hold a boundary, to close an energy leak, to end a relationship, because it can feel either like, I've got to please, I put other people above me, I don't want to let people down, right? There can be stories around that, and boundaries can be challenging for that reason. Or I'm really, really scared I'm going to drop the ball, or things are going to go away, or there's not going to be more later. I think there can be, obviously we could spend 3 months just on boundaries, but those are some of the more common ones I see for my clients. And I reflect that because I want to normalize that, right? Because those are all, that's mindset work, right? That's the place we sometimes have to dig in and to just excavate and clear a few things up so that it feels safe to be able to hold that boundary for yourself. And that's the real CEO level work. And I think so often we hear get shit done as a CEO, and our brain just goes to, oh, that just means delegate a bunch, or just hustle a bunch. And again, yes, there's a time to have some healthy hustle. Yes, there's a time to delegate, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But this, I think, is the real CEO level shit. I think it is very challenging to build a multi 6-7 figure business and to sustain that. I think, look, you can hustle your way and not have boundaries to pretty much anything you want in life. I don't want to create a story you can't, but it's very different to hustle and not have boundaries your way to something than it is to create a result and be able to sustain that result. The training we're doing later this month that I'll announce next week, but is more about the CEO mindset around reoccurring revenue. And one of the things I'm really proud of in my business is I make reoccurring multi 5-figure months, and I have for years and years and years. And I think it takes a very different level of mindset and strategy and execution, right? And just the way I'm showing up for the reoccurring revenue than it does for, and not hating or throwing shade to creating a big result once, but I think it's a very different way of showing up as a business owner and for yourself in your life when you're sustaining and having results over and over again. And I think that's the piece that gets really sticky for people, because there is a time in your business where you can kind of bypass your boundaries and you can kind of hustle and that'll work for you, right? And you can just bend over backwards and people please, and that will actually get you a result. And that can be a mind fuck because it does work, but it only works to a certain degree. And I have yet to see that work to a degree where you can sustain a business. If there is someone who is hustling and basically not backing themselves and not holding boundaries that's sustaining that level of success, I don't know them, or I would just bet a whole lot of money that's really personally unsatisfying, and they're not getting their version of success on the life side of things. So that's why I think this conversation is so important. Let's see. I want to see Tinley's comment. Then I'm going to go back to this because I have some more thoughts on this for everyone. Tinley says, business relationships are much easier for me to clean up and hold boundaries for, but my personal relationships are becoming bigger leaks in my life because I feel like I lean into my older identity when I'm with them. I think that is so, and she says fiercity. Isn't that the best word? I feel like I should TM that word or something. But I think you're so spot on with that. I think that is it's sort of like the thought that comes to mind for me is when people, I don't know, when I used to go back from college back to my hometown, or when people move away from home and then they go back to their hometown, or back to see family after they've moved away or something like that, and they've done a lot of work and they've had personal growth work and they've grown and expanded a lot. And then you come back home and it's like, wait, why am I reverting to all of this old stuff? But it makes complete sense. And I think it's exactly what Tinley is saying here is, when I moved to Los Angeles to act, I had an opportunity to recreate a new identity, but also I was meeting all new people. So I got to teach people, when we have an identity, this is why I talk so much about a CEO identity. This is not only how you see yourself in your mindset and the constructs and boundaries you set within yourself, but it's also how you teach other people to see you and how you teach other people to treat you. And this is like any relationship. Usually the identity we start a relationship with, the boundaries by which we start a relationship are usually how the relationship unfolds. And so if you move somewhere, if you start a business and have new relationships with a new identity, you're just teaching people that's who I am. So that's how they're going to respond in kind, versus if you go back home, or if you see people you have, like what Tinley's saying here, who you have those longer relationships with, they know you from your old identity. They haven't caught up to your new identity. People also have a lot of resistance to that, right? People have resistance to boundaries. People have resistance to wait, I thought you were someone else. Now you're this. Usually because of their own personal, I think it can be very confronting for people. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, but I think it can be challenging for certain people to see how someone else has grown, or how they might be shining, or how they might be taking up space. Not necessarily. I think also people just get familiar and you're like, but you're the person who X, Y, and Z. And so I think that's a very normal and common thing, and why that would feel more challenging. And I think it's also just so helpful to normalize for everyone and to see, look at how interesting that is. And so then if you have an energy leak with personal relationships, or with, family or friends who knew you back when, and you've been expanding and growing and up-leveling into a CEO identity, and now you're hitting a place in business where you do need more boundaries because you're having more success and you have more on your plate, and your team and your clients and your business needs more from you. But yet there's this energy leak over here. We can see where, and then you're having a hard time getting stuff done in business, or following through, or expanding, or scaling. We can see why our brain would say, well, the comfortable thing to solve for would just be throw money at this and hire more team. There's absolutely time for that. We're going to talk about that. But or the solution to this would just be to get better at navigating your calendar. But again, we just can't, no matter how great you are at calendaring and getting shit done and hustling, there's only so much we can calendar around weak boundaries and energy leaks. And so we can see then why, when this is going on, it's not anything to make anyone wrong. It's just solving the right problem, closing the right gap. And so when it's an energy leak or a boundary thing, that's what we want to solve for, versus let me go buy a program that's going to teach me how to time block for the 17th time in a different platform or a different tool. And I want to keep saying, I'm not hating, I time block. Like, that's how I do my calendar. I have my calendar right next to me. I have it written in a computer form. We're not hating on that. But what I do think is so important is starting to see what is actually the gap I need to close and address in my business so that I am able to move forward. And when it comes to energy leaks, when it comes to boundaries, and I think they're different, but kind of in the same camp, we often just want to resist doing that because it is uncomfortable, because oftentimes it means having a hard conversation. It can mean saying no. It can mean going against people-pleasing tendencies. It can mean people think and know us as one way, and we have to help them understand we're something different. And our brains are wired to want to fit in and be a part of the tribe as a survival mechanism, right? This is back from our hunter-gatherer days. That's going to feel sticky for pretty much any human that's a caring human who wants to connect with others, right? We get worried that we're going to get kicked out or people won't like us. So we get worried that our success is going to go away if we say no to new opportunities. So I just want to keep saying these are normal things. This isn't like you're a bad CEO and you shouldn't have this come up. No, you're a human running a business. And this is why I think coaching is so supportive, because you can help someone can help you see what's actually going on. But I think that this is also for anyone listening, just a place to step back and see, oh, this is how I can actually get more done in my business. Because just imagine if I didn't have all of this stuff draining my energy that I wasn't thinking about, or just think if I wasn't saying yes to 400 extra things or 4 hours of extra work when I only have 1 hour of time available. Just think of how much more quality work I could get done, how much more I could move the needle forward in my business, how much more white space thinking time I would have in my business. Okay, I'm going to move on because otherwise I'm like on it's like a soapbox today. Tilly says, oh my God, my gut just told me that my next evolution and big business boom will happen when I clean up those energy leaks and boundaries, not from more strategy. I mean, we could just end the live stream here. That I love strategy. I love strategizing. Strategy is pretty fucking simple, right? Like, strategy can only get you so far. This is the thing, right? When I look at what helped my business blow up, when I look at clients who have like boomed to the next level, it's mindset in different ways. It's not always cleaning up energy leaks and boundaries, but I can think off the top of my head of multiple clients, Tinley, just to really affirm this, who, when it clicked in for them, where it's like, their strategy was fine, right? This isn't a strategy issue at all. Their next level was literally around cleaning up the energy leaks and holding tighter boundaries. And the more they were willing to say no, the more they were willing to clean out those energy leaks, put some boundaries up around those relationships, the more they were, honestly, this is like a different form of the same conversation, willing to leave money on the table so that they could have that boundary around their time to focus on getting shit done in the few places they wanted to make money. Like, business blew up. And I can think of clients where like, this is the work we've had to do because things really slowed down for them for a while, not in a bad way, but like just in like, this is the work to do, and things were slowing down because of the energy leaks, because of the boundaries. So mic drop for you, Tinley. Yes, that's the whole thing. And I feel like you just like summarized this live stream beautifully, because and y'all know I love strategy. My brain is very strategically minded. And strategy and mindset, strategy and boundaries, strategy and action, strategy and alignment, like these pieces go together. And you can only strategize yourself so far. And I feel like I say this in so many different ways, but if it were simply you need more strategy to blow up your business, everyone who had the same strategy, which is pretty easy just to see what people are doing, would get the same result. And we can see many people have the same strategy. Many people have similar offers and are not getting same results. So, I mean, just logically, we have to see there's some other things that are at play here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit before I hop off. But I've got a couple other things here. Oh, and I'm like got all the thoughts going on, but I did want to mention, and I'm just going to mention in the middle here, since there's some of you live and you will see this on the replay as well. Also going live at 7 p.m. on Instagram. I'm being interviewed by Luciana, who's in this group as well. I think we have a fun conversation. So I just want to drop that before I forget. I'll mention it at the end of our live stream as well. But we've got a whole different conversation more about messaging and growing to six figures. But I just wanted to drop that before I forgot, because I always forget to make those announcements, and I'm looking forward to that conversation. But that's why I want to be mindful of timing on this live stream, so I have time to go eat dinner before that live. That's my boundary, so that I don't have an energy leak when I show up live later. But the other piece, the piece I wanted to play, because I said there were three things here. So the boundaries and the energy leaks. I think with that, what I will offer is, this is when you're coming from the place of holding a boundary around your time. One of the ways you can do this is by looking at what can I delete and what can I delegate. So there is a room to delegate within this, and to see that as protecting your energy or holding a boundary around your time. I think it's just being really mindful of, are you looking at this as, hey, I want to look at where I'm leaking energy, where I have too much on my plate. What do I need to delete? What do I need to delegate, so that I can have that time back that I'm going to put a boundary around for my own CEO level thinking time to focus on my work? Or is it more, I'm just delegating and I'm continuing to stay in my pattern of just adding more on my plate, or people pleasing and saying yes to things? And I think that's the thing I really want to invite people to notice as the difference. And again, it's not the delegating is so powerful, but if I just delegate everything to my team and I still have the same patterns where I'm yesing people, or I have energy leaks, or where I'm continuing to keep my calendar open when I don't have room, for example, right? All I'm doing then is I'm basically transferring my pattern over to my team, and I'm probably overworking my team. And I'm probably going to overwork myself as well, right? We're just transferring the pattern. So what I want to invite you to look at is, yes, delete and delegate, but how can you do that from a more neutral space, where it's because these are the things that need to get done and I don't have the room on my calendar to do that, so I'm going to delegate or delete it. Not so that I'm just going to clear these things out and then just recreate the pattern all over again. This is maybe a silly example, but I think about it as someone who has that habit around money, where when they get an influx of money, it doesn't feel safe to hold all the money, so they go on a shopping spree and they binge and they fill up their closet, and then they're like, well, I'm going to clean my closet out and get rid of everything. That'll be the solution. And it's like, well, that's great if you clear out your closet, but then if you just, as soon as your closet's clear, you feel uncomfortable and you go on a shopping spree again and you fill it back up, right? We're just creating that pattern all over again. So yes, delete and delegate. And I think a really easy way to think about deleting and delegating is when you're looking at your time tracking sheet, and when you're looking at energy leaks, and when you're looking at your work. If you're making notes on things, I always like to look at a couple things. I like to look at, what's the work that lights me up? What's the work that only I can do? What's the work that's my zone of genius? What's the work that needs to be done in my business but doesn't need to be done by me, or isn't in my zone of genius, or even in my zone of even if it's in my zone of excellence, that doesn't need to be done by me, that my business does need. And then what are the tasks that are draining to me, that like suck my life source, that are an energy leak, and looking at those and seeing, do those need to be done? Does my business actually need them? And if they need to be done, do they need to be done by me? And I think it's, who is it? It's one of the like famous old school business coach type people, and I cannot think, it's a male and I cannot think of who it is, but they talk about the concentric circles and how you're going to have the A, the B, and the C tasks. And the A tasks are what lights you up, your zone of genius, the work only you can do that your business needs to, right? The B work is the work that needs to be done but doesn't need to be done by you, and or is draining but needs to be done and doesn't need to be done by you. And then the C work is just like the draining work, it doesn't need to be done, it's the fluff. And we always want to look at, how are we, if that's all the work that's on your plate, how are you looking at, how do I delete the C's, right? The C's are the work that's draining, the work that doesn't really need to be done, the work that's not moving the needle forward. That's really the place you need to hold a boundary. That's maybe the place that is an energy leak for you and your team. That's the thing where it's like, don't go delegate that to a team member. Don't recreate the pattern with your team member. That is your opportunity to hold a boundary. And the boundary there might look like, I'm going to delete that. I am just going to remove that on my plate. The B work, right? That's still work you want to hold a boundary around. The work that doesn't need to be done by you, that's not in your zone of genius, that doesn't light you up, or the work that's draining but does need to be done in your business, it just doesn't need to be done by you. That's the B work. That's still work to hold a boundary around. That's still work that is probably an energy leak, right? So here we're not even talking about people. I think you could do the same concentric circles with people, but that's going to be more something that you want to look at. How do I delegate that out? How do I automate that, right? How do I offboard that some way? But still, how do I hold a boundary around that type of work? So this is another way to just get more shit done, but to think about your time, so that then what you're doing is you're creating a boundary around the very few things that are in your A circle, that are in your main circle. And that is the priority for you. That is the work only you can do. That's the work we want to say to prioritize. And what I would say here is, and when it comes back to boundaries and energy leaks, that is the work and the time you want to protect and put a bubble around. And the way I think about it is, like, this is the only Kim, like, things that only I can do. This is the thing, like, I'm the golden goose that lays the golden egg kind of a thing. I've got to, like, put a bubble around this. My husband he's very sweet, and with our marriage, he talks about it as protecting the egg, right? It's an egg we have to protect, right? Your what's in your A circle is protect the egg. It's the stuff you want to protect. And so this is the stuff that, what I would say is, yes, that's the stuff you want to get shit done, right? And put into your schedule and planner, but that's the stuff you really want to hold a strong boundary around, and that you really want to be mindful of where there are any energy leaks affecting that work, right? Some of the other stuff you might have you don't have to deal with. You can just delete it or delegate it, but that's really what we want to protect. It's a little bit here of, like, this is going to be your 80-20. That's going to be your 20% that gets you 80% of your results. That's literally how you're going to get more shit done, when you have fewer things in that A circle, right? Fewer priorities. But the way that you maintain that A bubble, protect the egg, however we want to call it, is, again, by holding that boundary. And what that's going to look like is what we were talking about with the energy leaks. What Tinley and I were just talking about is really looking at, then that means anything that isn't a part of that A circle, we've got to practice saying no to. That means anything that isn't a part, like anything that isn't energetically going to help protect that bubble, serve that bubble, right? Protect that egg. Anything that's going to leak into that, distract, take away from that, add more work to that, suck your focus away, get you insecure, drain your energy, right? That's an energy leak. Those are the very things we want to look at. How are we putting boundaries around? How are we clearing that out? How are we putting the boundary around that? Does that example make sense? Because for my brain, that makes sense, but I realize I'm very visual, and I probably would have drawn this out, and I'm hoping the way I described that makes sense for you. Tinley says, "Ooh, I'll try to sneak in live for that live stream." So I'm hoping that part makes sense there. But really and truly, if you Tinley says, "Perfect sense, thank you." Really and truly, what I find is I think I'm a very productive human being. I think not only am I productive, but I think I get a lot of what matters done in my business. And I think I get a lot of prolific output done, just in terms of, I put out a lot of, I believe, quality value work. I serve my clients really deeply. I get a lot done. And I think I get a lot done of quality work in terms of what matters for me in my business, what only I can do. Or we're talking about the A circle, the zone of genius work, the work that only I can do, the work that matters to me. And I think I've done a very good job of minimizing a lot of the to-dos and a lot of the tasks that need to be done in my business, but that don't need to be done by me, or just some of what would be in that B and C circle, and really protecting the egg. And not from I need to put walls and boundaries, thinking of a boundary as a wall and I need to protect myself, but really from the place of I can trust myself to hold healthy boundaries. And it's my job as a CEO to hold a healthy boundary, to really notice where there are energy leaks affecting that A circle, and to close them out. And I think because of that, I'm able to get a lot done in my business. I'm able to hold a large roster of clients. I'm able to have a really great personal life, right? I'm able to make consistent multi-reoccurring, multi-5-figure months. But a lot of that is, again, not because I have a magical strategy that everyone here isn't privy to or doesn't know, or because I'm a unicorn, or because I'm burning myself out, or because I'm, working more hours than someone else. I mean, I work a full transparency. I have a one-on-one roster. So of course I'm going to work a full schedule in a way that someone who has a different business model might not. But I work very normal hours. But a lot of that is because what we're talking about here. It's not because I have a better calendar system, or because I have figured out how to time block, and I've got the right tool for time blocking, or because I wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning. I'm not in 4 a.m. person, right? Or because I have a special smoothie and I don't know, whatever funny things we like buy into that we think like that's the reason. A lot of it is because of what we're talking about here. It's because I'm mindful of noticing where are my energy leaks, where are my energy drains, where do I need to hold a boundary, where am I not holding a boundary that I really need to, what do I need to say no to that I honestly want to do, that I could do, that would feel great, that would make me money, that would be a great opportunity, but it's not a part of that A, right? It would be a great opportunity for maybe the B or C realm. It would be a great opportunity if, but actually the way I can discern if it's actually a great opportunity or not is I know by saying yes to this thing, it's actually going to put a strain on what's in that A bubble. And I think that's just the easiest way for like my brain to think about it. And so I've just gotten very practiced at that. And I think it literally is a practice. And I think underneath that, I've personally, and this is what I work with my clients on, right? There's just a lot of mindset work around being able to set and hold boundaries. And I think I'm really good at that, but it's not something, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have told you like what boundaries? I probably didn't have boundaries, right? I probably was energy leaking all over the place. It's also something I've learned and adapted. And what I wanted to reflect around that, and I think this is maybe helpful to hear in terms of how to get shit done as a CEO without wanting to burn your business down, right? Without feeling burnt out. And when I look at maybe an opportunity I say no to, or when I look at closing up an energy leak, I've gotten much more practice. It's gotten so much easier. That doesn't mean it's always the most comfortable thing in the moment. I think sometimes we think like when we get really good at boundaries, when we get really good at protecting our energy, when we get really good at looking at these things, I think there's a story or a narrative that can sound like, and it'll feel super great and cozy. And like people who are really great at boundaries, like they love holding boundaries. And this might be different for other people. I can only reflect my own lived experience and just what I've heard from some clients. I love what boundaries do for me in my business. I love how when I set and hold boundaries, I do get more shit done, right? I don't want to burn my business down. I don't feel burnt out. I love my work. I love my business. I feel energized by it. I love my clients. I love my personal life, right? I love the money I'm making. I love what boundaries give me. I love what closing out an energy leak gives me and the byproduct, right? The result of it. And it's not like when I have to hold a tough boundary with a person or when I have to say no to a really juicy, fun opportunity that I know would actually suck away time and energy from what is in that A circle. It's not like that is necessarily the most comfortable thing in the world for me. I just know that I can handle the discomfort. I just know that what's on the other side of it is worth that discomfort. And I think I've just gotten practice at that. So I just reflect that because I do think sometimes what can be trippy around things like holding boundaries and, oh, I'm like losing my shirt here. Or closing energy leaks, I think there's a way in which I've seen some of my clients want to make themselves wrong if it feels hard or if it feels sticky or if it feels challenging or if it feels uncomfortable or if they're like, man, I have to set this boundary for a second time with someone and I think what can just be helpful to see is, no, that's just normal. I mean, maybe there are other people who don't have that experience and probably depends a lot more on what was underneath making boundaries challenging in the first place. I think Terry Cole calls it your boundary basement. If you've had trauma or not had trauma, just what are some of the things you've had to shift around to be able to set and hold that boundary? But I just really want to normalize that because I think it's okay if setting a boundary or closing an energy leak doesn't feel great in the moment. But I think what's really helpful, and this is where thinking like a CEO and showing up like a CEO comes in. I think as a CEO, what we're really starting to do is not just live in instant gratification, not just live in reactivity mode, but really look more in terms of, yes, what serves me now, but also what serves me in my business long term down the road, and how can I respond with that in mind? And I think that's where then things like say no to a juicy opportunity or closing an energy leak or holding a boundary that maybe doesn't feel great in the moment can also feel great, right? You can have two feelings at the same time. It can both feel uncomfortable and both feel awesome because you're able to have more of that future thinking perspective. And I think that's so much of part of what thinking like a CEO is. Tilly says, I love you. Tilly says, you and your team have done an incredible job supporting us. We adore you all. Oh, I love you. I love my team too, by the way. To be very clear, I would not be able to run my business without my team. For all of the conversation we're having today, I just want to be very, very transparent around that. The number of clients I have, the amount of content we put out, this is where it's like my 24 hours are not created equal to someone else's 24 hours who doesn't have a team. I have 5 part-time team members. my business would not be run without them. So let's be very clear in this conversation. And then Tilly says, not the special smoothie. But we're laughing, Tilly, but isn't it, I feel like that sometimes is the things our brain wants to do, where it's like someone else gets more shit done because they have a special smoothie and a special morning routine, and like there's a whole special thing. And it's like, well, yes, maybe, because that makes them feel good, and they're holding boundaries, and they're closing those energy leaks, and they're having the tough conversations, and they're saying no to things so that they can say yes to themselves and what's in that A circle. Tilly says, oh, totally, not my specialty, making myself wrong. I think that's why it was important to speak to, right? The making yourself wrong thing, I think it's just a very common, easy thing for the brain to want to do. And I mean, I think especially with something, just what we were speaking about earlier, with closing an energy leak, with holding a boundary, I think in some ways our brain subconsciously wants to make us wrong as well, because it is uncomfortable. And then it's sort of like, if I can make myself wrong, then I also don't have to lean into the conversation that's going to be very challenging, that my brain really doesn't want me to do anyway. So I think in some ways that's also a way we distract ourselves from the very things that are going to actually have us feel better long term. Let me just see my notes here, because I feel like I had a lot of tangents today, and I want to make sure I didn't miss anything too big. We talked about the 80-20, the priorities, the A circle. We talked about hiring out the essentials. We talked about those concentric circles. I suddenly have the hiccups. Yeah, I think we talked about most of these things. I mean, I could talk about boundaries for a very, very, very long time, but what I really want to, in closing, say, let me just see what Tinley says here. It's too easy for our brains to feed us that thought that somehow everyone else has all the answers. So happy you've helped coach me around this. I love you. I'm so happy you're open and receptive to that. I mean, that's just like, you're just like the mic drop moments today. I think, that's what my whole podcast is about, y'all. One question, because you have the answer, not me, right? And I think that's just the whole thing with business. I think it's so easy, especially in our space, to want to unintentionally outsource our power to a mentor, a guru, to someone on the internet, to someone who seems like they have all the answers and the secrets. And look, of course, there's room for education and room for learning, and we're not making that wrong at all. And there's room for hiring experts. I work with a coach, right? We're not making any of that wrong. But I think, just to what Tinley is saying, is it's just so easy for our brain to do that, because look, as long as we're outsourcing our power and everybody else has the answers and the secrets, right, we also don't have to lean into sometimes the more challenging, uncomfortable thing in the moment, which is, if there is no secret, if you have all the answers, that means you have all the answers, so the responsibility is on you. But that also means, like, then you probably know the answer. Most of my clients, when I give them a hard time around boundaries, it's not like, oh my gosh, this is brand new information, Kim. I had no idea that maybe I should hold a boundary here. Oh my gosh, I had no idea that maybe I should put less on my plate, or say no to this thing, or say no to this person. This person was maybe like creating some toxicity in my life, right? I think it's just so much easier for us to do that, because we don't have to lean into the scary things in front of us. So just to normalize. Our brains are sneaky. Our brains aren't wired for success. They're just wired for comfort and survival. And that's why I think coaching, and that's why I think having support to help you manage your mind and also help you plug back into your own power, right, and give yourself your own answers, is like, that's the real CEO work. It's so easy to want to hire someone and say, hey, will you actually take my power away from me and be the CEO in my business and tell me everything to do and like hold me accountable to everything, right? That's so easy to do, versus, actually, will you hold me to sitting in my own power and to making my own decisions and to trusting myself and to showing up and holding myself accountable and to taking action on things. So just to keep normalizing, our brains are just funny, and that's why support is so useful. Sarah says it's always easier to let someone else do it. It's always easier to let someone else do it. It is always easier to also think someone else has all the answers. And look, I do the same thing, right? If I'm frustrated, what does my brain want to go to? It's like, so-and-so, they must have a secret, right? It doesn't matter how far along in business I go, how much I help clients to, if I'm having a moment, like, that's just always when I know I need to do my mindset work, when I probably need to hold a boundary, there's probably something uncomfortable I'm avoiding. And so I think it can just be a helpful question for all of us, which is, what am I avoiding right now? or what am I trying to resist right now that I don't want to lean into? But my brain does the same thing. I think the gym example is always the best for this, when it's like we see people who are like really in shape or really healthy, and it's like they must know some. I mean, the diet culture industry like thrives off of this. It's like, what's their secret? It's like, and then we're like, oh, they don't have any secret. No one else knows. It's so much easier to go searching for the secret than to lean into, oh, what am I avoiding? I'm probably just avoiding going and doing the uncomfortable thing, which is going for a run or lifting the weights or doing whatever the thing is. Sarah says, exactly. I joke, but yes, mindset work is important, very important. Oh, Sarah says, but what was that very special smoothie? Because I volunteer as tribute. Joking. I do have some good smoothie recipes. I mean, I'm not mad at a magical smoothie. If your mindset will get on board, that magical smoothie gives you the energy and power. I'm here for it. Tilly says, thank you so much for this amazing live. The exact permission I need to say, love you. I love you so much. I'm so glad this is what you needed to hear. And that's what Sarah said. Exactly. I joke, but mindset work is very important, very important. Basically, the summary of today's live stream is mindset work is super important, but so are the smoothies. Like, get yourself a magical smoothie. And for the small investment of $9.99, I will sell you my secret smoothie recipe that will give you 6-pack abs and $1 million overnight. And this is the special recipe, but you have to, Venmo me first. And there's no refund. So I'm totally being a smartass. Have a smoothie if you want to. But the summary of today's conversation is, as a CEO, if you want to get more shit done, like that is important in business, not hustle, but if you want to get shit done without burning out and without burning your business down, absolutely top level, look at the practicals, right? We're going to look at time blocking. We're going to look at time tracking and seeing where your time and energy is going. We're going to look at things like, is it time to delete or delegate items off your to-do list? Like, abso-freaking-lutely, start with the top level practicals. And if week after week after week, you're either not implementing the practicals and there's some resistance there, or you are and you've cleaned out that closet and you've just filled it right back up, right? And you're still in the same place, chances are there's something else at play. There can be other mindset pieces at play, right? It's not always boundaries and energy leaks. There can definitely be other fears. Like, this is one live stream. We can't go through all the things, but a very common thing, if you're finding yourself just at max capacity, always bleeding time and feeling like you can't keep up, oftentimes then, and you've already looked at the time tracking and the delegating and the deleting and the scheduling, chances are your next step is not, let me go buy another calendar like time tracking program, or let me go find another strategy. Chances are one of the things to look at might be those energy leaks, or where is there an opportunity to hold a boundary. And to remember, sometimes holding a boundary means saying no to really fun, awesome things and opportunities, right? Boundaries can be around energy leaks. Boundaries can be, hey, no, I don't have time for this right now. But it could also be like saying no to an interview that you really want to do because there isn't the time on your calendar and it's not a part of your A circle. Or even to a client, right? Because you're fully booked and that would overbook you and that would bleed into everything else. It's a whole nother conversation, but I would say that happens a lot when you're in fear city, that fear and scarcity we were talking about, right? One of the boundaries that can happen is overbooking yourself and doing so because you're so worried someone's going to go away or that you're never going to book another client. So just checking in with that and just seeing that sometimes the mindset work, sometimes looking at what's a little more uncomfortable and sticky in the moment is the very thing that gives you your time back, the very thing that gives you your freedom, the very thing that gives you your brain space back to be able to show up and think like a CEO that is going to allow you to make more money, but also make more money in a way where you actually like your fucking life and your business. Sarah says, send me recipes because mine are horrible. She says, yes, totally. Let's go. I will send you a recipe. I feel like I have a couple good ones. My husband has some really good ones. And there's one I really love, and I'll just see if I can find the actual recipe that has coconut and pineapple in it. Okay, so I will share recipes. And then before I close out, reminder, I'll be live at 7 o'clock on Instagram today, and we'll have the replay up afterwards with one of our group members in here, Luciana. We're going to talk about messaging and six-figure secrets in air quotes. And I don't know what questions she's going to throw at me. So I'll see y'all at 7 on Instagram. If you commented live, you are entered to win our free gift. And then if you're listening to all of this and you're like, you know what? I need some support with the strategy, Kim. Or maybe I don't need any more help with strategy. And I've got enough strategy for days and I need a lot more support with the mindset side of things so that I can think and show up like a CEO, so I can set and hold those boundaries, so I can stop getting in my own way, So I can't stop putting more on my own plate so I can build my business, get more done without burning out, without wanting to burn my business down. That is what I support my clients with all day, every day. I have one coaching intensive available this month, and I am really on a tear of wanting to put my money where my mouth is, and I know there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the online space. I also really love to work with clients long term for years and years and years, so fit's really important to me. So we are keeping some of those free sessions I was offering going. I have revamped one of them to be a 100K CEO mindset and strategy session, which will allow us to dig into really doing a short audit on your business and seeing currently what's going on. What is that right gap for you to close? Is it mindset? Is it strategy? So that you can get clear on that next step for you. I'm going to drop a link for that. If you are someone who is curious about what it would look like to work with me in one of those intensive, if you are someone who is serious about your business, you know what your business is, you know what your offer is, you are all in on your business, you're not looking for the answers from me, but you're wanting that coaching support and you're coachable, you are eligible for one of those sessions. And I just say that so that, that's how you're going to get the most out of the session. If you don't have a business idea yet, you probably won't, but I will drop a link for that. I would love to connect with you. Even if you're not interested in an intensive, I would love to connect with you and support you. Those will be available, and then it's also a great way for us to see if it's a fit to work together more. So I will drop that link after this. I will see some of you live on Instagram at 7, and I'll be back next week on Monday. And then next week, we've also got, did I announce this last week? On the podcast, we're going to have 2 episodes dropping next week and every week moving forward for the foreseeable future. We'll have our regular scheduled 1 question episode. And then on Thursdays, moving forward, we will have a bite-sized biz lesson, a You Asked, I Answered episode where I'll be answering one of your questions each week. So if you have questions for me, if you have mindset strategy question you want me to answer on a future episode, drop it in the comments. You can DM me and I will, if it's in my wheelhouse, answer it on a future episode. All right. I love you all so much. Thank you for hanging with me. I'll be back next week. Bye.